So the next question is, onset of labor is initiated by which of the following? So the first option, uterine distension. So this question is about what actually happens that leads to the onset of labor. So the first is uterine distension. This is correct. What happens that because of the uterine distension, whenever there will be stretching of the uterus, it will lead to increased gap junction proteins. It leads to increased receptors for oxytocin or oxytocin receptors, and it leads to increased formation of CAPs, that is contraction associated proteins. So these are the proteins which are associated with the contraction, so CAPs. So uterine distension is the correct one because it leads to increased gap junction proteins, increased oxytocin receptors, and increased CAPs, that is contraction associated proteins. So first one is the correct. Now coming to the second, increased CRH and ACTH from the fetal hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So this is correct. This is one of the most accepted hypothesis. What does it say? That there are events just before the onset of labor which leads to activation of fetal hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Now because hypothalamus is activated, so hypothalamus will release CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. This corticotropin releasing hormone will act on the pituitary of the fetus, which will lead to increase in the secretion of ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. This ACTH is going to act on the fetus adrenal gland and is going to release the cortisol. So the cortisol will rise, and this cortisol will increase two things. One is the estrogen, and second is the prostaglandin. And one of the role of the estrogen is also promote synthesis of myometrial receptor for oxytocin. Number one. Number two, estrogen itself increases prostaglandins, and estrogen leads to increase in gap junctions. So gap junctions in myometrial cells. So gap junctions are important for the contractions. So myometrial cells. So second option is correct, and also we have seen that in the fourth option we have discussed that there is an increased synthesis of myometrial receptor for oxytocin due to effect of estrogen. So fourth is also correct. Coming to the third option, that there is increased level of progesterone immediately before labor. So this is wrong. We know that the progesterone is actually responsible for maintaining pregnancy, not for terminating pregnancy. So what happened that, as we have discussed, that there is a increase in the level of cortisol. And there is also increased production of the dehydroepiandrosterone sulfate. So increased cortisol and increased DHEAS leads to inhibition of conversion of fetal pregnenolone into progesterone. So the ratio of progesterone to estrogen get altered. That is, progesterone is falling, estrogen is increasing. Why estrogen is increasing? Because of the cortisol. Why cortisol is increasing? Because of the activation of fetal hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So that's why this decrease in the level of progesterone leads to the labor onset. So the third one is incorrect. So the answer will be 1, 2, and 4. So B will be the